In a quiet Missouri town, two young women vanished years apart, both connected to the same man. For more than a decade, their families carried the heavy weight of unanswered questions, searching for truth in a case that seemed impossible to solve. This is not just the story of missing lives, it is a 14-year battle for justice, filled with heartbreak, shocking turns, and a courtroom fight that would finally reveal the dark truth about Kylr Yust.
Welcome to the Case File. Here, every crime has a story, every mystery leaves a trail, and every detail could be the difference between truth and deception. From assassinations that shook the nation, to manhunts that gripped entire cities, we uncover the raw, unfiltered events behind the headlines. These are not just stories. They are lives, choices, and consequences. The files are open, the cases are real, and the truth is waiting to be found. This is the Case File. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because the next case might be the one that changes everything.
On a spring morning in 2007, a 17-year-old girl named Cara Kapesky walked out of her high school in Belton, Missouri, and disappeared. She never made it home. She never called her family. She simply vanished. For her loved ones, it was the start of a nightmare that would stretch on for years, filled with fear, unanswered questions, and the desperate hope that somehow she would be found alive. What made the case even more disturbing was that Cara had recently broken off a toxic relationship with a young man named Kylr Yust. He was jealous, controlling, and violent. Cara had confided in friends and even told police that she was afraid of him. But no one could have imagined how far his anger would go. In the days after her disappearance, her family searched everywhere. Her school, her favorite hangouts, the places she was known to visit. Flyers were posted, news stories aired, and the small town of Belton was shaken. How could a teenage girl vanish in broad daylight with no trace? But this was only the beginning. As investigators dug deeper, the focus began to fall on one man, Kylr Yust. And for the next 14 years, his name would haunt this case, resurfacing again when another young woman, Jessica Runions, would also vanish under eerily similar circumstances. Nearly a decade after Cara's disappearance, another young woman crossed paths with the same man. In September 2016, 21-year-old Jessica Runions attended a party in Kansas City. She was full of life, kind-hearted, and known for her warm smile. That night, as the gathering wound down, Jessica left with none other than Kylr Yust. Friends remembered seeing them together, but Jessica never came home. Her phone went silent. Her car was later found abandoned. Just like Cara years earlier, Jessica seemed to disappear without a trace. Her family knew instantly that something was terribly wrong. Jessica was close with her loved ones, and it wasn't like her to vanish without a word. Fear grew quickly. Was this a repeat of what had happened to Cara? Investigators quickly turned their attention to Kylr. Witnesses said he was the last person seen with Jessica. And when police tracked down her burned-out car, suspicion deepened. Why would her vehicle be set on fire? Who was trying to erase the evidence? For Jessica's family, the search was agonizing. Every passing hour felt heavier. And for those who remembered Cara's case, the similarities were impossible to ignore. Could it really be happening again with the same man at the center? Chapter 3, Closing in on Kylr Yust. By now, investigators had one name that kept coming up again and again, Kylr Yust. Detectives retraced his steps. They questioned his friends, tracked his movements, and dug into his past. What they uncovered painted a dark picture. Kylr had a history of violence, jealousy, and rage. Some of the most chilling accounts came from those who knew him best. Kylr had confessed before, boasting in moments of anger that he had hurt Cara Kapesky and made sure she would never be found. Some dismissed his words as drunken talk. Others didn't believe him at all. But with Jessica now missing, those confessions carried terrifying weight. And when investigators discovered Jessica's burned-out car in a remote field, all signs pointed back to him. Kylr was arrested, but suspicion alone wasn't enough. What police needed was undeniable proof. That proof would come, not from evidence at the scene, but from the haunting memory of his own half-brother, who carried a secret he could no longer keep. Kylr Yust's name had long hovered over both cases. But now, investigators uncovered a voice that could break the silence, his half-brother, Jesse. Jesse remembered a night years earlier, when Kylr came to him in a storm of anger and guilt. He confessed that he had killed Cara Kapesky. He said he choked her after a fight and left her in the woods. At the time, Jesse was young and scared. He didn't know whether to believe him. But when Jessica vanished years later, Jesse realized the pattern was undeniable. Two women, both connected to his brother. He could no longer stay silent. He went to police and revealed everything he remembered. His account was the missing piece that tied Cara and Jessica's disappearances together. But even with this testimony, the case was fragile. Without finding the bodies, there was still room for doubt. Authorities needed more, and soon fate would lead them to a discovery that would finally confirm the family's worst fears. Months after Jessica vanished, a search team scouring remote Missouri farmland made a chilling discovery. Beneath the soil and leaves were human remains. Not just one set but two. Forensic tests later confirmed the truth. One set belonged to Jessica Runions. The other was Cara Kapesky, missing since 2007. For Cara's family, it was the moment they had both dreaded and needed. 14 years of searching and hoping had ended with confirmation. She was gone. Jessica's loved ones too were devastated, but they finally had the answer they feared. Their daughter, their sister, had not simply disappeared. She had been taken from them. Both families were united in grief. Their daughter's stories, now forever linked, circled back to the same man, Kylr Yust. For investigators, this discovery was a turning point. What had once been whispers and suspicion was now undeniable evidence. The question was no longer whether he was responsible. It was whether justice could finally be delivered in court. In April 2021, after years of heartbreak, the case finally went to trial. Prosecutors laid out a picture of a violent young man, driven by jealousy and rage. They brought evidence: the burned car, the remains hidden in the woods, and his brother's testimony. Witnesses recalled Kylr's threats and violent temper. The most haunting moment came when jurors heard recordings of Kylr himself, privately admitting to taking both women's lives. The defense tried to fight back, questioning the reliability of his past confessions and pointing out gaps in the timeline. But the weight of the evidence was too strong. For the families, watching the trial was painful. Every testimony forced them to relive their daughter's final days. But they sat strong, determined to see the case through to the end. At last, the jury returned with their decision. Kylr Yust was found guilty: voluntary manslaughter in the death of Cara Kapesky, and second-degree murder in the death of Jessica Runions. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Tears filled the eyes of families who had waited more than a decade for this moment. The judge sentenced Kylr Yust to life in prison plus 15 years, ensuring that he would never walk free again. For Cara and Jessica's loved ones, the verdict was bittersweet. Justice had finally been served, but nothing could bring their daughters back. Still, after years of waiting, there was finally accountability. For 14 years, the families of Cara Kapesky and Jessica Runions lived in limbo, torn between hope and despair. Their fight for justice tested their patience, their strength, and their belief that the truth would one day come out. When the verdict was read, it wasn't just the end of a trial. It was the end of a journey that showed the power of persistence. Kylr Yust will spend the rest of his life in prison. But the stories of Cara and Jessica live on, not only as victims but as reminders of the resilience of families who refused to give up. This case was more than an investigation. It was a 14-year struggle for answers, filled with heartbreak and courage. And while no verdict could ever erase the pain, justice at long last was finally delivered. Even after the trial ended and the sentence was passed, the echoes of this case continued to shape the lives of everyone connected to it. For Cara's mother, Jessica's family, and the many friends who loved them, healing was not something that came overnight. The conviction gave them closure, but it did not erase the pain. Birthdays passed without celebrations. Holidays carried empty chairs at the table. Every milestone, graduations, weddings, the futures Cara and Jessica should have lived, were stolen forever. Communities across Missouri also felt the weight of the case. For years, their towns carried the headlines, the searches, the unanswered questions. When the verdict was finally read, neighbors, classmates, and strangers came together to honor the lives that were lost and to support the families who had fought so hard for justice. Advocates began to use the story of Cara and Jessica to raise awareness about the warning signs of dangerous relationships, hoping to protect others from suffering the same fate. Their tragedy became a call for vigilance, a reminder that violence often hides in plain sight, and that speaking up can save lives. And for the rest of us, the legacy of this case stands as both a warning and an inspiration. A warning about how quickly lives can be taken, and an inspiration showing how determination and love can carry people through the darkest of battles. The story of Cara Kapesky and Jessica Runions is more than a criminal case. It is a reminder of how quickly lives can be changed, and how long justice can take when the truth is buried under silence and fear. From start to finish, this case revealed the importance of listening to warning signs. Friends spoke about Kylr's violent temper. Families remembered the threats. Yet those moments, often dismissed as just words, became deadly actions. It shows how crucial it is to take danger seriously before it turns into tragedy. The trial also proved that persistence matters. Without the voices of Cara's mother and Jessica's family, the case might have faded into memory. Their refusal to give up, even when leads went cold and years passed, was what finally brought Kylr Yust to justice. And perhaps the most powerful lesson is this: justice may be slow, but it is not impossible. For 14 years, it seemed as though the truth would never be revealed. But when it finally was, it carried the weight of all those years of waiting, fighting, and hoping. The lives of Cara and Jessica cannot be replaced, but their legacy continues to speak, through awareness, through community action, and through the strength of those who loved them most. The crimes of Kylr Yust stretched across more than a decade, leaving behind shattered families, broken communities, and questions that will never fully be answered. Yet within that darkness there was also courage. The courage of a mother who refused to let her daughter's name fade. The courage of families who sat through painful trials and relived their worst nightmares. The courage of communities who stood together, determined to see justice delivered. Today Kylr Yust sits in prison serving a life sentence. He will never walk free again. That is the law's answer to the lives he stole. But the deeper answer lies in remembering Cara and Jessica, not just as victims of violence, but as young women who dreamed, loved, and lived with hope for their futures. Their stories now stand as reminders that even in the face of loss, voices can rise, truth can surface, and justice, though delayed, can still prevail. 14 years of waiting ended in a verdict, but the true legacy of this case is found in the strength of those who refused to be silenced. Their fight turned pain into purpose, and their daughters' names will never be forgotten. If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Subscribe to the channel, share this video, and hit the like button so more people can learn about their journey and the justice their families fought so hard to achieve. We'll continue to bring you more true crime stories, each one uncovering the battles, the heartbreaks, and the truths that shape real lives. So, stay with us, because every story deserves to be told, and together we can keep their memories alive. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true crime stories like this.